This next song is the most heartfelt that I've ever written. Megan went to Adelaide, then she went to visit Jay. I'm jealous. I wish I went to Australia with both of them. But instead I went to Springfield and it sucked. It was boring. Meanwhile, Jay and Megan met Sean Schemmel and more. So the next time that I take a vacation soon, it'll be to Space Brisbane. So I can watch Jay fucking a blonde and maybe smell his finger too. Then we'll go find Ellie Goulding in the UK. The cops will then take us away. But it's okay because I'm with Jay and I love him a lot. But I'm not gay. Not there's anything wrong with that.
Okay, that's a good Dragon Ball Super closing theme right there. I also say I didn't meet Sean Schemmel, just for the record. Hope that doesn't fuck your song up. But
It did
I
fuck
met
my
Chris.
song up.
Well, I met Chris Sabat, Summer Glau, but I did not meet Sean Schemmel.
Meanwhile, Jay and Megan met Chris Sabat and more.
You might have to re-record that song separate because I didn't meet Sean Schemmel.
I don't care. We'll just keep. No, I don't give a shit. She met him. She met him, right?
Osmosis.
In Adelaide, she did. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Then you know what? The song still applies. So let's talk Dragon Ball, folks. I'm Geekdom, and Jay is back from his vacation with Megan. Actually, this video will be going up a little bit after that. There are already some videos on their channels. Jay, did you have a good time?
I had a great week, and I said to Megan on Facebook, one of the highlights of my year was meeting her and hanging out with her. So
here's what people want to know: is she as attractive in person as she is in her photographs and her videos?
She's a very nice, attractive girl. That's all I'll say. She's
a real knockout.
She's an attractive girl. Yes, that's all I'll say. But
now, speaking of attractive girls, Mike from LaughingStock Media is here. Hello, Mike.
Hey guys, it's Duct Tape from Comic Corner. How's everybody doing today?
He's not attractive in the slightest. No, I'm kidding. He's all right.
For turtle standards.
You're a dick, bro. All right. Well, welcome to the Talk Dragon Ball podcast. Me, Jay, and Mike are going to talk about Dragon Ball and shit. So the topic that we came up with is life after Dragon Ball Super. Dragon Ball Super.
Cue the weeping. Cue the weeping.
Yeah.
Oh no.
You said you were going to cry after you heard the song, Jay.
That's before I heard the song.
Wow.
Nah, man, it was a good song.
The songs are dropping in quality. So, okay, Dragon Ball Super reinvigorated the Dragon Ball community along with the last two movies. We've got a lot of stuff coming up, and we don't even know when Super's going to end because we have the Universe 6 arc coming. We're still in the middle of the Resurrection F arc. The manga's still going. It could be a year. It could be a year and a half. It could be 2 years. But at some point, Dragon Ball Super will end. And we don't know what the ending's going to be yet. There's speculation, of course. We don't know if it's going to go past the 28th Budokai or not. The question is, though, what happens after? What is the future of Dragon Ball after Dragon Ball Super? Will Dragon Ball do more movies like Battle of Gods and Resurrection F? Will it take a hiatus? Will it become strictly a video game product or what? And what's it going to take for Super to end? Like, is it just going to end or will it keep going for many years? Mike, what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what's after Dragon Ball Super. GT.
Welcome to the Grand Tour, Dragon Ball GT. Welcome to the Grand Tour. A brand new adventure begins. I'm just gonna stop now because I can sing that whole song even though
I want you to do the whole fucking song.
Nah, man.
But yeah, I mean, I really don't know what they're going to do next. I mean, it might just be over. I mean, who knows? Like, it was basically over aside from video games and like stuff here and there for the past like 15 years. I don't know if I see that changing when Dragon Ball Super is actually over. I would like to see it just go on indefinitely, but the fact of the matter is
it's going to end
like,
eventually, right?
sometimes shows gotta, they gotta actually have a real ending and actually have like a real payoff and a finite conclusion, or else they just get a little bit too worn out. It's like Breaking Bad, although I am one of the people who actually feels like Breaking Bad's final season should have been 2 seasons. But the fact of the matter is that Dragon Ball is something that has lasted for 30 years at this point. And I don't really see it ending, at least in terms of fandom and other things, for a very long time. Because again, when we started talking about a lot of this stuff, or when we were really into this stuff, Dragon Ball was considered dead. Like there was nothing new. GT essentially was the last thing that we got. There was the special, the Jump special, but there was no Super. The movie came out, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. But again, there was not really any real like finite proof that it was not dead. And now Super has definitely reinvigorated it. So for all we know, it's just gonna just continue to thrive in the fandom and the people who really appreciate it.
Okay, that's fair. So, Jay, what do you think? What do you think the future holds when Super eventually comes to a close? What's next for Dragon Ball?
Well,
I know it's a weird question to ask, but I want to pick your brain.
The themes. I'll start with the themes of Dragon Ball are very universally like well known, and everyone can relate to one theme or another in Dragon Ball at some stage if they watch the entire series. And I think that's why it's such an everlasting popular show. It just the popularity never dies down. And for me, it really started with Dragon Ball Kai. When Dragon Ball Kai came out, that kind of reinvigorated the fandom for me there, because you had old fans going back and watching, a new English dub, and they were enjoying it. The Japanese were enjoying it. Like the ratings for Dragon Ball Kai were quite good in Japan. And you also had a new generation of fans being introduced to Dragon Ball. So a lot of the younger kids that are now like 10, 11, they got introduced to Dragon Ball through Dragon Ball Kai, and they love the show, just as much as we did back in its heyday. So I feel like it kind of started coming back when Kai started in 2009. And I definitely feel like, Super is, like Mike said, reinvigorating the series and giving it a new lease on life. I think it's going to really, really start to take off when the Universe 6 arc comes around. I feel like it'll start to hit the hype and the heights that it did back in the 90s. I'm hoping that's what happens. But I can definitely see a buzz around the series as it stands at the moment. As for when the Super finishes, we obviously don't have an episode count or when it's going to finish. But I feel like Dragon Ball is one of those stories that, like anything, the longer it goes on, the worse it gets. And I'm not just being disparaging towards the story being told in Super.
No, I mean, that's most TV shows, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, South Park, Simpsons, American Dad, Family Guy. I mean, they all get worse over time. I'm not trying to compare those shows to Dragon Ball. I'm just using them as an example. But Dragon Ball Super, it's not as good quality as Dragon Ball Z. I don't think anyone can argue that. The story told in Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball is far superior to Dragon Ball Super. But Dragon Ball Super is still telling a good story, and it's still an enjoyable story. So, it depends on how long it goes for. Yeah, it's new stuff. It's original content. So I don't know how long it's going to last for, but I'm hoping they don't drag it out too far, because it will start to, leave a bad taste in people's mouth with how it's the story is being written. And I already feel like it's doing that somewhat with some of the character development. It's kind of leaving some of the side characters out, even though it is Goku's story. It is not really giving much credit to the side characters. So I'm hoping that they fix that up with the Universe 6 arc. But I feel like once the series does eventually reach its conclusion, that it'll be very similar to when GT ended. I've given my thoughts about GT before. I don't really think it's that bad of a series. The execution wasn't always there, but there's some great themes, and the ending to GT was good enough, in my opinion. So I feel like it'll be a similar ending to GT with, the fans will just accept that, we're not going to get any more Dragon Ball for a while, if ever again. And although I don't like to be too negative, once the voice cast, starts to age and get older,
they're already aging, my friend.
Yeah, they may not replace the voice actors, and that might be the end of Dragon Ball when those voice actors are no longer able to perform their duties with their voice performances. So there will come a time when Dragon Ball does inevitably end once and for all, but I feel like by that stage we will have enough memories and enough content to, love the series and make videos and talk about it for years and years to come.
Couple questions I want to bring up to you, and I'm going to also go to Mike. How do you feel about the possibility of, in the far future, Toei doing a completely reanimated Dragon Ball, where they literally start from scratch with modern good animation, and good for, when I say good, I mean like not good for their standards. I mean good, like good animation, new voice cast, new everything, new music. Do you think that's even a good idea? Because I don't think Dragon Ball is old enough to warrant that. But maybe in like 50 years. What do you think about that? I have a follow up that I'm gonna go to Mike with.
Okay, well, I would say to that yeah, like you said, it's too soon for a revamped series. But if they do it in the future, Dragon Ball's one of those everlasting things. Like I said, the popularity is probably not going to die away for a long time, if ever. So I feel like eventually there will come a time where if they wanted to do that, people will be accepting of it. I just think they have to be careful with how they do it because I don't know a lot about anime and how it's drawn in comparison to people like Megan or Hail Zeon. But what I will say is that I am noticing that just as an example, look at how well drawn the opening and how well animated the opening to Dragon Ball Kai is. If they redid the whole series with that quality and that standard of animation, sure, I'd be all for it. But if they were to reanimate the entire series like they have with Dragon Ball Super, I'd probably disagree because if I had to pick between the hand-drawn animation of the 90s in Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, I'd still choose that animation.
I actually
over
like
Dragon
that
Ball
animation more, yeah.
Yeah, I like it more than digital. And I'm not saying digital animation is bad, but I feel like digital animation in Super isn't doing the show justice. It's not.
What if it looked like One Punch Man? What if it was that quality?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Like I said, I don't have a problem with digital animation, but my problem is that Dragon Ball Super, some of it looks great and some of it looks, not so great. And I'm not going to harp on the animation, but I just feel like if they're going to do a show such as Dragon Ball Justice, they would need to, really, really put in their an A grade effort, and they would probably have to hand it over to someone else. It's not Toei, to be honest with you, because I feel like Toei kind of takes the series for granted sometimes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I want to
go ahead. I'm gonna have a question
before
for you.
Ask me the next. Yeah, before you ask me the next question, I want to expand upon that. I was going to actually say what Jay just said. Basically, I have no problem whatsoever with them reanimating Dragon Ball Z, and I don't think, or Dragon Ball in general.
Dragon Ball,
I don't think
most people are from the start. Yeah.
Well, I think Dragon Ball through Z and whatever else, I have no problem with it, to be honest. And I don't think a lot of people will because, to be honest, nobody had an issue with Kai, which is just, taking Z and remastering it and recutting it. So I don't think that they would really have an issue with that either. They might prefer, certain animation to another. I prefer hand-drawn animation to digital animation in the first place, and I still think that there's room for it in this world. But the thing is that they have done great remakes of series. For example, Hunter x Hunter in the 90s. It already came out. After Yu Hakusho came out, they did a Hunter x Hunter series. You know what I mean? And then they did a whole new version of it in the 2000s.
Yeah, and then there's also Full Metal Alchemist and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Oh yeah,
that's an even
so
better
I have
example.
zero issue with them remaking it. But again, like Jay just said, I'd want someone else to remake it than Toei, because honestly, I just don't feel like Toei will. I feel like there's better anime companies out there that could do a Dragon Ball better justice than Toei does, honestly. And I'd rather see someone else get a chance. It's never going to happen, but I'd prefer to see that happen. And I feel like someone like Gainax or Madhouse or something like that would be able to do a much better job than Toei does.
Okay. My question to you was, we got Force Awakens dropping very, very soon.
Yes.
How do you feel about the possibility of them making, and this is actually a question I got in a Q&A that I think we could actually talk about. How do you feel about them waiting a couple years and then doing a series that is with or without Toriyama? I want to say with Toriyama, but it's Toei. They do whatever the fuck they want. How do you feel about a series about, I don't know, about Goku or Vegeta Jr. or a series that's far in the future? Far in the future. But I'm not done. Same continuity, a couple of cameos from the current cast, but it's essentially the legit next generation Dragon Ball, the real next gen Dragon Ball. You know what I mean? How do you feel about that idea? And I'm gonna ask Jay too, but I want you to go first. Like I said, Force Awakens, it's still Dragon Ball, but it's a whole new cast. Everything's new with the exception of a couple of characters that'll pop up here and there, but brand new story.
It's a whole new world we live in.
There's a lot of singing on this show. And no Goku, by the way. No Goku.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, to be honest, I was literally just thinking about this earlier and was going to say it anyway. The thing is that when you think about it, look at what they introduced in Battle of Gods. They introduced new universes, 12 of them, in fact. So for all we know, they could do another series or multiple series which take place in the different universes. And then eventually they can have crossovers between characters from different universes that go into theirs. They can have completely new characters, completely new dynamics that still take place in the overall multiverse of Dragon Ball. But they could eventually like have like certain gods be like, oh, Goku and Vegeta or the Saiyans from this other, you know what I mean? Like they could have stuff like that. But I don't like, to be honest, like Dragon Ball is a gigantic universe, like that has multiple universes, in fact, with gods and all this other stuff that really expands and is even beyond like the Z fighters, because even though we spend so much time on Earth and with the Z fighters and stuff like that, you kind of get the idea that there's so much more stuff going on in the universe than simply applying to them, even though they're the most powerful characters. Like the Kais, they watch over so many different like planets and like lives and stuff like that.
Well, not
that
just
can't
that,
always
but
be
also
bothered with
the
Earth.
Galactic Patrol, that mysterious
Yeah,
new character Jocko's talking about. There's a lot of universe building I've seen lately.
Yeah, so to be honest, like I wouldn't really have a big issue with it. Now, does that mean that I would be as engaged? I don't really know, just because the fact that the reason why we're so big into Dragon Ball is because of characters, and we've watched it over the course of decades. So when they introduce something new, does that automatically mean it's going to be as good or as engaging as the original series with the original characters that we've seen evolve over the course of 3+ series? No, but does that mean it will be bad? No, I mean, I think it's worth a try if they're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to have a good writer like J.J. Abrams, Lawrence Kasdan in charge of Star Wars Force Awakens, somebody who's familiar with the manga, familiar with Toriyama's writing style, or maybe Toriyama himself, and just do it not about Goku. I think there's potential down the road to do a series in the universe, Dragon Ball universe, without Goku. And I want everybody in the comment section below to tell me if they think that I'm crazy and if Dragon Ball can thrive without Goku.
Goku is the main character. I was going to say real quick, Goku's the main character, but he's not the end all be all of this. Like, I feel like at this point we've seen enough characters introduced with enough story arcs to really show that Goku is not the only one who needs to be in the main role. And they've even attempted to do that in the past, but it just didn't work out for whatever reason.
I mean, not just that. I'm talking about absolutely so far into the future that Goku is basically a legend at this point. You hear about Son Goku, kind of like Trunks when he came from the future and he heard about this legendary Son Goku. And that's how I want it to be. Like, so deep in the future that's, you know, he's a legend. He's not even alive anymore. Like, you know, and then maybe the quest could be what happened to Goku. That would be the first character arc. Or the first story arc. What happened to Goku? There's so much potential there for a great story to be told, I think. Again, you're right. Goku is the main character of Dragon Ball. We're talking about like a Dragon Ball The Next Generation, sort of like Star Trek, where they had Captain Picard and you had references to the original series, but it wasn't about Captain Kirk anymore. So, Jay, what do you think about all this?
I'd be happy to see a new series, but the problem is the community is already divided enough between what's canon, what's not canon, and they make up their own as well. And I feel like a series that didn't have Toriyama involved, even though Toriyama's writing is not always consistent and creates a lot of problems for the community in general, I feel like a series that didn't have Toriyama involved would just create more problems because people would just bitch and complain about it like they did with GT, even though GT has pretty much zero plot holes and has a much more consistent story than Super thus far. People love Super way more.
Wait a minute. Did you
oh my god.
Wait a minute. You said GT has zero plot holes.
It has next to zero plot holes, pretty much, yeah. If you actually look at the story in Japanese, you know, it pretty much has no plot holes. And I can back that up if anyone wants to talk to me about that, you know.
We're talking about like a series down the road.
Yeah, but I'm not finished making my point yet.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
That's all right. So I feel like
This
GT.
got some bass in his voice.
The point I'm trying to make is that GT doesn't have anywhere near the problems that Dragon Ball Super does. Like, if you want to forget that I said plot holes, whatever. GT is a more consistent story and fits into the universe theoretically better than Super does.
Okay.
Now, people are going to have a problem with me saying that, but it's the fact of the matter is it's true. But they like Super more because Toriyama wrote it. So I feel like a new series that's set in the future, that's fine. But I would be worried about the repercussions of people bitching about it and saying, oh, you know, it's Toriyama's not making it, so it's not an official story. I think that would be a big thing, and it's a shame because that's a massive part of the community. But I would love to see a new series set, you know, generations ahead of Dragon Ball. And Toriyama doesn't have to be involved. They could probably get someone in who, you know, keeps the continuity going, doesn't create plot holes or doesn't unexplain stuff. And I'm not trashing Toriyama. I love Toriyama a lot. But I'm just saying, you know, maybe they could create a series that doesn't have Toriyama involved in it. But I fear that if they didn't have Toriyama involved, there would be a backlash from a certain percentage of the community. So I feel like there would be positives to having a new series, and I would thoroughly enjoy seeing it, but I also feel like there'd be a big negative backlash to it as well if Toriyama wasn't involved with it. But the thing is, Toriyama is not going to want to do Dragon Ball forever, and that's been made abundantly clear in the past.
I mean,
You know what I think
I hate to say it, but he's going to die eventually. Really.
You know what I think would be really interesting that a lot of people don't really focus on? There is 100-year time skip in GT. If they wanted to combine them or do whatever, like if they wanted to somehow create solidarity between all these different brands, they could set a series during the 100-year time skip, like while Goku's gone, and have stuff like take place during that, which involves all these different characters without Goku there. Like there's actually a lot of room for potential for things to happen in between that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Or like you said, a series with, or even maybe even like I hate to borrow a page from like Power Rangers or a Super Sentai, but a series about the Dragon Balls, but not the Earth Dragon Balls. Another universe, another planet, their Dragon Ball. It's still Dragon Ball, but it's not Goku. I do think there's going to be some rejection from some of the audience, but I think if the story is told correctly, I think if they show respect to the original author and the original story, I think it could be done, man. I think if time goes by, and again, I like the idea that Star Wars is taking, where according to these characters, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and, Lando Calrissian and Princess Leia, they're these legendary mythical characters that fought in this mythical Battle of Endor. And the Jedi are even more mythical. Like, I really like the concept of somebody in like 100 years or 200 years or whatever finding out about this mysterious Goku and all this different training he had from all these different gods, like Whis, like Kami, like Kaio, like all this shit, and trying to follow in his footsteps, but being a different kind of character, maybe not being dumb, maybe being a little smart. I think there's potential, dude, for them to do that, but I think they're scared. It's the John Cena WWE thing. They're probably scared of not having Goku be the top guy,
I mean, to be fair, Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of did this as well with Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
And didn't Digimon do it too?
I believe so. But with Yu-Gi-Oh!, a lot of the fan base was not like, they didn't like the fact that they did new series with the different characters and stuff like that. But to be honest, for someone who was a big fan of both, I could definitely say that despite the fact that it started out kind of rough, it really grew into its own and became something that was really good along with the original series. So, I mean, people are always going to be rejective and hesitant when a new series comes along with the new characters in the next generation, but it can be done as long as it's done like correctly and accurately and,
Star Trek
with
The Next
good
Generation
writing.
did it.
Yeah, I like Star Trek The Next Generation even more than the original, too.
Yeah.
A lot of people do.
A lot of people do. No disrespect to the original. I love them both.
And I'd like to reiterate. I never attacked Super once during the video. I was just simply stating that GT does, if you look at the facts, GT does have less plot holes and fits into the continuity better. That's a fact. It's not it's not an argument,
really. It has
really.
less plot holes, yes.
If you watch it in Japanese, there is pretty much next to no plot holes.
Well,
really.
Cooler appears in one scene, so that's a plot hole.
The Cooler, and the only other one is the fact that when they die, they don't have halos unless they're in heaven. If they're in hell, they don't have halos.
Plus the fact that everyone got a power-up out of nowhere for no reason, even though some of them probably weren't even training for that.
Like that's off-screen stuff, but that's a different video. That's all off-screen stuff. They're not really plot holes.
Video. Yeah. We need Xeon on for that because he.
I know people might get upset with me saying that, but if you look at the factual information, that's the sort of series I'd like to see. A series that has good continuity, no plot holes. Even if it is a fresh series, I think Toriyama may not have to be involved because sometimes with these sorts of series, and Super's a prime example. As much as I love him, he is creating a lot of what if, like what's going on in the community, people don't know what's going on, a lot of stuff unexplained. Maybe a fresh set of hands for drawing and a new imagination would be a good idea, but I just feel that a lot of the community would have a massive backlash about that.
Toriyama should team up with Togashi so that they can make a brand new series.
Togashi Yu Yu Hakusho, thank you.
No, they really should take a new guy like a Yusuke Watanabe and just have Toriyama be the question and answer guy, and that's it. I would be fine with that, honestly.
Isn't Watanabe the one who made Broly though? Shouldn't we keep him away from
that's Takao Koyama, you poser.
Keep him away from
Mitsubishi Toyota, according to you.
Banzai, sushi, sashimi.
Oh, Christmas.
Kamikaze.
I hope we don't have any Japanese fans watching.
Well, they're not going to be fans for much longer.
Oh, you dicks. All right, well, let's take it to the comment section. What do you think about a potential series takes place far in the future for Dragon Ball? What do you think the future of Dragon Ball Super is? And of course, the future after Dragon Ball Super. And of course, check out LaughingStock Media and Super Jayain their channels. Always subscribe. Jay is around 3,000 now, and definitely go check out Jay's content. It's great. And of course, Mike is always coming up with new ideas, fresh ideas that nobody else has but him.
Thanks.
So that's
I'm very fresh.
Suck it. No, but
Thanks, bitch.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and I'll catch you down the road.
I'll do it now.
Wow.